Mark Milan here. Thank you for letting me be a part of your day. I hope you're doing good. Today, I wanted to tackle the topic of onboarding team members. I love onboarding new team members. I was a volunteer who became a team member, and then I became a volunteer leader, and then I joined a staff on a church. So to me, the whole process is very, very personal, and it's very important because I lived through it, and I'm very thankful for the systems that I was able to learn as I became a leader and went into ministry myself. So equipping the saints is part of our mandate, Ephesians 4, we know this. And so I want to give you 5 things that I personally do that I think are very important when you're onboarding team members. And I just want to give you some thoughts and insights to each one. And then you can kind of take from that and maybe build something for yourself. Perhaps you're starting a team. Maybe you have a team and there isn't a system to how to get new team members in. Either way, I hope some of this can help you grow your team. Remember, team members, if we use the same people all the time, we create a little bit of unhealthy dysfunction. You can't have people over-serving. You want to give people breaks, and that's why new team members are great to have, because they give us depth and they allow us to do different things, and they allow people to step back and step in. And so, but you have to have a great system and a process to do it effectively. So I want to give you those 5 things. Starting with number 1, have a great audition process. Number 1, have a great audition process. I have found that using video technology saves a lot of time and is very efficient. There are some setbacks, which I'll mention before we move on to number 2, but number 1 is have a great audition process. Using video technology like this is very useful. So what I usually do is I have all the songs already sorted. If you're a singer, we have songs for tenor, soprano, and alto. If you're a musician, we have songs already designated for bass, drums, electric guitar, keyboard, whatever those are. Usually 2 songs is enough. I try to give enough variation of either a tempo or a genre to see how diverse the person can adapt to the music. But I have the songs in a file. We email it to the person. The person has, in our timeline, we have 15 days or about 2 weeks to learn the music, record the music, and send it back. We do give a timeline because if you give a person 3 months, 30 days, in my reality, we don't have that much time when we're putting a set list together, or sometimes when we get information for what the weekend is going to look like. So if they're going to step into the environment that we currently operate in, we want to give them similar parameters so that we can see if they can really survive and adjust to it, because we want them to succeed in it. So about 2 weeks is very effective. I found that to be pretty effective. 7 days is a little too quick to learn 2 songs, record them, and send them back. So 2 weeks is pretty fair game. The person just has to record a video like this, and as long as we can hear them singing or playing while the music is playing in the background, it allows us to give a good evaluation. Have a good scoring system. You have to be able to score it really, really well and clearly so the person understands what they need to work on or where they're executing. How you audition is vital to all the other 4 that I'm going to give you, because if your audition process is vague, if it's unclear, if it doesn't have a lot of structure to it, and that person moves into another phase of the team, you're going to discover that all the other steps are going to require a lot more work. So consider the audition process almost like the job description if you were hiring a person for a role. Right, so you want the role to be very clear for them, you want it to be very defined for them, and then you want to see if the person is a fit for that role. So to me, that's what the audition process is. Now, the only setback to using videos for your auditions is that people at times may take several takes to get it right. Right? Like if I spend 2 hours or 3 hours just playing my guitar, I can finally get it right and then send that video. So we have discovered that, but that's on the minority of it. On the other side, if we weren't doing video auditions and we were doing live auditions, A lot of times I have discovered that people get very nervous in live auditions, number one. Number two, it's very time consuming for everyone involved. Everyone has to physically be at a place when they're happening. So I have found that video auditions have really helped move the ball down the field. So that's number one, have a great audition process. We use Google for MP3 files, and then we use YouTube videos to evaluate them. That's been great for us. Number two, very important. Number two, the interview process. So after the audition has been completed, we've received the audition, we've evaluated, we give that person a score that we feel is the standard. You should have standards that meet for your team. So there's a basic standard that says, okay, this is the core of what we need for a team member to be successful on our team. That should have some sort of, like I said, job description. There should be a standard that defines that. So if that's a number, whatever that is, a grade, maybe, I don't know how you want to do it, but you have some sort of marker that says you've reached the standard. Once that person reaches the standard in their audition process, we move to the interview. And in the interview, I do this face-to-face with another leader on my team. And it's a chance for us to get to know them and a chance for them to get to know us. Remember, this person is becoming part of your team family, and you want to make sure that not only they feel like they belong there, but you also want to feel that they belong there. So it's kind of like entering into a relationship. You just want to see if it's really going to work. And for me, sometimes I've had people who barely passed the audition, so they were just under, but in an interview process, I realized I want this person on my team. They have the heart, they have the hunger, they have the humility. There's been people who have passed the audition, and in the interview we realized they're not ready to be on the team yet. Maybe they need to serve, maybe they need to attend church more. They don't even have the vision of the church. They just got saved 2 weeks ago. Those are things that you don't know in an audition that you can find out in an interview. And if you want to know the questions I ask in an interview, I'd be glad to give them to you. Just shoot me an email. My link and information is on my channel here. I'd love to send you those. But I usually have a list of questions I ask in the interview, and sometimes they lead to other questions, and at the end I always open it up and say, what questions do you have for us? The point of the interview is to get to know the person, for them to get to know you and your ministry, for you to lay out what the expectations of the ministry are, and then see if it's a fit. And if that works out, you move on to step number three. Number three is the shadowing process. Shadowing process is what we do when we allow a new team member to come in and observe how we do rehearsals and how we do ministry on the weekend. So if we have a midweek rehearsal, we invite them to that. They get an invitation through Planning Center, which I assume that you use, or most churches use these days. They get invited to Planning Center. They get invited to the rehearsal. They show up when the band shows up, whatever start time that is. Again, it's like a job. So we want to see if they're showing up on time, if they're showing up late. Are they engaged when they show up? Are they disengaged? These are things you get a chance to see before the person is entrusted with responsibilities on the platform. So, but they're just shadowing, and which means that they're observing. So if they're a singer, I'm pairing them up near another singer. I'm introducing them to the team. I'm making them feel like family. They get to see how we interact together. They get to see our culture. They get to see all the things we normally do, because I want to expose them to how we do ministry before they start to do ministry. So it's been very beneficial. I've done this for years now. Shadowing is probably one of the secret sauces that really helped a lot of the teams I've developed grow over the last decade or so. So shadowing is very, very effective. I usually have them shadow 2 times, which means 2 separate weekends. You can do them back to back, or you can do them every other, but I let them do it twice before we move forward. So audition, interview, shadow. And then after shadowing, we move them into training and equipping. Now, this can look very differently. I don't want to give you too much to overload you. We are very intentional about training on our team, but one of the things I do is I incorporate some sort of podcast teaching because I want the worship philosophy to be clear to them. What I mean by that is every church has a slightly different worship philosophy. How they approach worship, what's the purpose of it at the church? How does worship serve the weekend vision? All those things are different from church to church. So whatever your vision is for your church, I try to articulate that as best as I can, either through a teaching or something that I would personally teach. In our case, I've recorded several podcasts and we give those to the team members. And then we invite them to training nights. So we actually have a night where they will get together for about an hour and a half, and they will start to use their gifts at that point. So at the shadowing stage, they're not using their gifts. They're not singing, they're not playing. They're just hanging and they're part of the family. When they're training, then we start asking them, hey, show up learning these 1, 2, 3, or 4 songs. We start them off slow and we build them up. So we might start with 1 or 2. And then as time goes on, we say, well, come learning all 4 songs that the team scheduled is doing for that weekend. And then on our training night, we want to see how you do. It's a safe place for them to learn and grow. It's a safe place for them to make mistakes. It's also a safe place for us to bring any correction and coaching that we may need to help them kind of get adjusted and acclimated to what's really going to be expected of them on the weekend. I know it sounds like, oh man, I don't have time to do that, but I'm telling you from experience that this will give you long-term gems. Long-term gems. If you skip any of these little things, you spend all of your work down the road when they're already serving on the team, and it's much harder to train, to equip, to culturize a team member when they're already singing and playing. Way, way harder. I've found it to be more loving to integrate them slowly. One thing we've always said on our process is we don't rush anyone into ministry. We don't rush anyone into ministry. So we go to the audition, interview, the shadowing, and then we train and we train and we train until we believe that they are ready. We want them to know that they're ready, and we want to be able to affirm that they are ready at the same time. If we rush it, then we pay the price later on, which is when they're serving, and we want to avoid that. So we spend a lot of intentional time training, coaching, affirming, and then when they're ready, we just, man, you're ready. You are ready to start serving on the weekends. And then we rotate them into the team on a weekend, and then we continue to give them some coaching and feedback. And there's always little things that every singer or musician needs to work on, but once they're in rotation, we kind of do that just as a normal cultural thing. So those are the 5 steps: audition, interview, shadow, training, and then rotation. I want to leave you with these 2 thoughts that I think are very, very important. Cultural indoctrination is huge. The culture of your team. We usually start to address that in the interview process, and then we start to expose them to our culture in the shadowing process. For us, that's been a huge, huge point. The podcasts and the teachings, which I mentioned earlier, those have been really, really helpful. I want to encourage you to either find some that you identify with or maybe create them yourself for your own team. Celebrate and nurture team members all along the process, because each step along the way, you want them to feel pastored, you want them to feel valued and cared for, and then you'll see the fruit at the end. So these are the 5 things I have done and continue to do when we're onboarding new team members. I hope they help you, and until next time, from my heart to yours.